Hi guys, this is Wenzes from Below the Radar Above the System, and I want to talk to you about creating harmony in your life, and that we very often don't take the best solution possible because we have a certain understanding that you understand when there's tension in the air. And tension very often happens, and our natural tendency is to balance that other person out. And we kind of do it to an extreme. So whatever that person goes to, we try to balance that out and not really set a ground of this is who we are, and then the other person has to adapt. And a lot of that has to do with our NI not having a limit, not having any kind of SE in our life, or not strong enough, because SE is reality. SE is really, this is the table, this is what's really happening. It's in that moment where you don't daydream, when you're really in reality and you see, okay, I live in that city. This is where I should actually try to do the best out of. These are the people I have around me. What's the best I can make out of this situation? Or do I have to personally go somewhere and do something? It is about actually creating your own destiny and not waiting for somebody to kind of like take you on a ride with them, and you helping them out with their problems. So this is a lot, this is a lot to do with this NI being, which is it's time based, it's all over the place. We can understand so many different perspectives, and we have no moral value that is keeping us somewhere. So it's really hard for us to understand where we stand, because we can go this direction, we can go that direction. And the only thing which actually helps us understand where our limits are is pain. It's some kind of pain that we experience that shows us, okay, this is how far we can go, and now we really have to integrate SE and actually build a life on our own. I've talked about it a little bit in the last video, but this pain comes from going into your shadow functions, from actually going so much introversion that you understand that you can go into FI, which brings you a lot of shame, and then you go into SI, and then you kind of completely lose all hope for everything. You don't know where to go. You thought, okay, I did everything in my power to help that person. Because it's not that you sit there and you think, okay, so I'm gonna help that person, and then they're gonna like me, and then everything's gonna be all good. This is not how consciously we see the situation. What we see consciously is, if I don't help those people, no one will help them. If I don't do this, who will do this? If your brain is. I've talked about it so many times, but it's so true. Your brain is not made to strive for happiness. Your brain is not made to create wonderful things. Your brain is made to run away from pain and to find the easiest way out. And as long as we don't have a limit for our NI, we kind of like go by what we have learned so far. And what we've learned so far is that we go best through life if we kind of just adapt to other people's moods, because we pick them up. It's not like we can really completely take it out, but the more you're in NI mode, the more you can pick up what's going on. The more you can, it's a very perceptive function. You pick up all kinds of moods from the outside, how people feel, and you internalize them. What you do is you kind of make yourself whole. You go like inside, you carve out like a place. So everything that comes in, you can feel it completely. And hold on. Excuse me. So this is what you do. And this is the best way that you've gone through life, and this is in a lot of ways also the only way you've learned to go through life, because maybe especially within childhood, you've learned that putting your SE out or doing things your way, people are not going to like. And when they're not going to like you, they will fight back. And since you, as an NI dominant, especially in your younger years, are so perceptive of this, you kind of have it, engraved, and it doesn't leave you. And once you hit that limit, once you understand, okay, this is not the direction to go, I will always kind of do that. This understanding where people are coming from and adapting to that. You will never lose that. This is how I always thought, oh, if I go and be extroverted and I go and do something else, I'm not going to be myself. You have to understand your first function is your worldview. It's who you are. You don't have to think about it. It's like somebody said it, if you're a fish and you're in water, you don't have to constantly think about the fact and show people, oh, I'm in water. Water is my world. Water, this is who you are. Just because you go a little bit closer to the surface and you kind of like see the sun, you're still going to be underwater. But once you learn that there's a limit and this is not the way to go completely and put all your happiness and have no limits and boundaries, and then you start like really integrating your inferior function. And it can be very hard at times because that means that you kind of wake up and then you look around and you feel like nobody's gonna like me, because everything that you've learned so far, how you conditioned yourself to be liked, is gone. Because you've said, okay, I can't go that direction, I can't go that far because it's just too painful. I can't take it, I can't stand it, I just have to go somewhere else. And yeah, I hope in a lot of ways, since we're all like INFJs, we kind of help each other out when we talk about this, or how I experience it. And I've seen how it has helped people to kind of go into that other direction. And so you don't actually have to experience it yourself, all those things I experienced in order to get there. But what you do at that point is that you have to understand, okay, I can't be completely in those deep waters and those NI waters, because when I'm there, everything's possible. My imagination can take me anywhere, and it can also take me to places which are not healthy for me. A lot of FI dominants have to learn that too, and with FI dominant, INFPs have to learn it because it's a lot more emotional, so they have to learn it a lot earlier because it's, FI can be very painful, rather faster than NI. NI is a lot of just imagination without any having moral base or anything like this. But when we go really, really deep in those NI waters, we also touch a lot of those shadow functions which we should avoid, which are not NE, for example. NE is a shadow function, but it's an external. It kind of helps us to get out of difficult situations. When we're probably down there, it helps us to think, okay, maybe I did this wrong, I have to go that way. But those shadow functions that are introverted, which if you're an introvert, which in case of INFJs are, for example, FI and SI, those are actually to be avoided to some extent because you are human. You have limits, and we all have to learn that there are limits to our abilities. We theoretically could go into those really deep NI waters in those FI, SI, and could stay there, but we can't. Those are very, very draining, especially SI is very draining. And understanding that you have limits is, on the one hand, of course, painful because you realize, okay, I'm not superhuman. On the other hand, you have really a reference point. You have a reference point knowing, okay, I can go that far. This is how far I can go. And so I have to change something. And once you change that, you integrate the inferior function much more. Because up until that point, you've just like kind of let it out of the way. You always had everything in your imagination was the only thing that really mattered, and everything was possible there. So you could go into certain directions. You can imagine if you help that person, then you could be so happy and so on, not realizing that there's actually no reality in it. It's just, an imagination that can't really happen. So once you realize there's a limit, you start integrating that that external sensation, this SE, which means you kind of, I said this before, you wake up and then you're in reality. You see, really, this is going on around me. I thought I was so powerful and I had all these great things and how I experienced the world and I knew so much, and then you realize, okay, but the only thing that really matters is what I do out of this life. You know, this is it. I can't save from my imagination the entire world. I can't change necessarily somebody else's life just like that, because I have limits. There's something I have to do in this real world that will make me feel better, that will first off help one person, maybe two people, maybe a lot of more, that kind of just like puts your truth out there, and you start fighting. And it is difficult because we kind of are not that mobilized. We're often in Erdio, we're rather relaxed. It's difficult for us to kind of like really put enough power in it and really, really do something, get something done. And a lot of times, especially when we're younger, we don't want to admit that to ourselves. We're all in this and I world and everything makes perfect sense. But once you realize, okay, this is where I have to go, then you kind of can make the right steps in order to do that. And it is possible. It's just a matter of practice. It's just a matter of practice. It's a matter of how often do you repeat to yourself, this is what I have to do. I have to be concentrated. I have to be strong. I have to put my force out there and I have to strengthen it so I can really do something great in the real world. And you shouldn't be afraid that you lose this NI, because I'm still in that NI world all the time. But I still know when I really want to get something done, something that is, that will sustain over time, I have to go out and do something in the real world, talk to real people, make videos like this. I've seen people, they started their own companies, or they started going and helping other people achieve something, just things that are really external that you can touch, and they're never gonna be as perfect as your imagination would go and would be, but you can use everything you imagine as a reference point and then work towards that thing. And once you do that, then you automatically put more emphasis into FE, and you kind of like go into that direction, and you fight, and you balance yourself out. And this is the best thing I have done in my life, is integrating that inferior function. It's of course a stepping stone. It's the last one in this first episode. There's gonna be probably tons of stuff I'll experience and view in the next years, but it was a big step, and it was a step I really didn't want to take. But yes, there are limits to how far you and I can take you. And you're not gonna find those limits within, I don't know, it's not because you're lazy, it's not because those limits, it's not because you're lacking something. You'll find those limits because of pain. And it's always like this. It's just with everybody like this. You learn your limits from pain, from failure, and then you keep on going. You know how they say success is not a one-way street? It's like failure, 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 and then you kind of like go into success. It's always you learn what works, what doesn't work, and it's on you to kind of like really take that new information and really bring it somewhere new and bring in something better and create a better life for yourself and for others. And that's why it's so important to kind of have some kind of reference point in integrating your inferior function and really doing something in the real life that is beneficial for others. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and talk to you soon. Bye.